In 1921, an American town was bombed from the air, not by a foreign enemy, but by private planes hired to put down a rebellion. Thousands of armed citizens fought against law enforcement in the largest labor uprising in American history. It happened at a place called Blair Mountain. Ever heard of it? What if I told you that the violent struggles for workers' rights, the rise of authoritarianism, and even how we handle global pandemics are all just echoes of events we've already lived through and forgotten? We like to think we're moving forward, but it feels more like humanity is walking in a circle. The biggest mistakes our society is making today have already been made. The real question is, why do we keep making them? The answer isn't just a case of bad memory. The problem is deeper, woven into our own psychology and the very systems we trust to teach us. We're trapped in a cycle, not by chance, but almost by design. It's a design fueled by cognitive biases that warp our view of reality, and by a selective telling of history that prefers comforting national myths over uncomfortable truths. The thing is, we don't just forget the past. In many cases, we are actively encouraged to ignore it. This isn't some conspiracy theory. It's a documented pattern of human behavior. To break the cycle, we first have to understand the forgotten events that hold the clues. These aren't just trivia questions, they are warnings. They're roadmaps of the dead ends humanity has already explored. And by ignoring them, we're basically navigating the future with a blindfold on. Let's go back to the Battle of Blair Mountain. For 5 days, more than 10,000 coal miners in West Virginia, many of them World War I veterans, fought for the right to unionize and for basic human dignity. They went up against a private army backed by coal companies, and eventually, the U.S. Army itself was called in. It was a literal war on American soil, yet it's barely a footnote in most history books. This violent crackdown on labor rights isn't just one story. It's part of a much larger pattern of downplaying the bitter fights that secured things like the 40-hour work week and the end of child labor, struggles that are incredibly relevant today as we debate workers' rights and economic inequality all over again. And this selective amnesia isn't unique to America. In Indonesia, between 1965 and 1966, hundreds of thousands of people were murdered in an anti-communist purge. For decades, this slaughter was just erased from the nation's official history. It was a successful campaign of societal forgetting that shows just how easily uncomfortable truths can be buried to hold on to political power. Or think about the 1918 influenza pandemic. For a century, it was treated like a historical curiosity. Then 2020 hit. Suddenly, historians were screaming that the lessons were there all along, the danger of downplaying a threat, the political chaos, the social unrest. But because the 1918 pandemic was a distant, dusty memory, we made so many of the same mistakes. It's not just single events we forget, it's entire eras. We often remember the period between the World Wars for the Great Depression and the rise of fascism. But it was also a time when democratic nations utterly failed to act on clear warnings, choosing to appease authoritarian leaders and basically sleepwalking into a global catastrophe. Today, as we watch democratic backsliding and the return of aggressive nationalism, the parallels are chilling. These events, the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, Europe's 30 Years' War, the vital contributions of the Oneida people to American independence, they aren't just forgotten stories. They are data points. They show us patterns of racial violence, of religious conflict, of political greed that are still with us. Ignoring them is like a doctor ignoring a patient's medical history. It's professional negligence on a civilizational scale. So, why do we do it? Why do we have this massive library of human experience at our fingertips, but refuse to check out the books that could save us? Part of the answer lies in the weird, glitchy software running in our own minds, our cognitive biases. Our brains are hardwired with mental shortcuts to deal with an overwhelming world. The problem is, these shortcuts often lead us astray. One of the main culprits is recency bias. We naturally give more weight to recent events. A stock market dip last year feels more important than the crash of 1929, even if the older event has far deeper lessons to teach us about how systems fail. Then there's the availability heuristic. Our minds are drawn to stories that are vivid and easy to remember. We fear shark attacks because of movies, even though falling coconuts are deadlier. In the same way, history for many of us becomes a highlight reel of big cinematic moments. World War II, the fall of the Berlin Wall, while the slower, more complicated stories, like the gradual erosion of democracy, get ignored. They are less available to our minds, so they seem less important. And this is all compounded by confirmation bias, our habit of seeking out information that confirms what we already believe. If our national identity is built on a story of nonstop progress and being special, we'll subconsciously push away any history that contradicts that story. It's just easier to filter out the messy truths than to rebuild our whole worldview. But maybe the most insidious bias is our deep-seated belief in progress, this assumption that this time is different. We think our technology and our modern smarts make us immune to the failures of the past. This is a dangerous illusion. It creates a kind of chronological snobbery, a belief that our ancestors were just dumber than we are, and that their mistakes have nothing to teach us. It's the ultimate form of arrogance, and history is littered with the ruins of societies that thought the same thing. Our mental glitches don't operate in a vacuum. They are magnified by our social structures, especially our education systems and our political narratives. History isn't just what happened. It's a story that gets told, and the storytellers hold immense power. For generations, American history textbooks either completely left out or massively downplayed events like the Tulsa Race Massacre, where a thriving black community was wiped out by a white mob. They minimized the critical role of Native American allies like the Oneida people at Valley Forge, because it complicated the simple myth of rugged settlers building a nation all on their own. This isn't an accident. It's a process of creating a selective curriculum, where history is curated to build a specific national identity, one that's often more flattering than it is true. Governments can take this even further, into active historical negationism. This is the outright denial or twisting of the past to serve a political goal. Think of nations that deny genocides or reframe wars of aggression as acts of liberation. This doesn't just shape national memory, it shapes the national conscience. It tells people what's okay to remember and what they're expected to forget. When these two things, our internal biases and these external stories, work together, they create a powerful feedback loop. The system gives us a simple, clean version of the past. Our confirmation bias makes us accept it. Our recency bias makes us feel disconnected from it. And the cycle just keeps going. This brings us to the heart of the problem. Forgetting isn't passive. It has active, devastating consequences. When we ignore history, we don't just repeat the past, we completely misread the present. Policymakers fall into this trap all the time, using lazy historical analogies. The decision to invade Iraq in 2003 was pushed with the argument of avoiding another Munich, referring to the 1938 appeasement of Hitler. The fear was looking weak. But opponents warned of another Vietnam, a costly and unwinnable war. Both sides were just cherry-picking history to fit their argument, boiling down a complex situation into a simple slogan, and it led to a disastrous outcome. Our collective amnesia about labor history allows hard-won rights to be chipped away. Forgetting the long, bloody fight for civil rights allows the machinery of injustice to keep running. Ignoring the warning signs of rising authoritarianism in the 20th century makes us less able to see those same signs when they appear today. The aha moment is this. Our greatest challenges are not new. They are recurring patterns. The names change, the technology is different, but the fundamental human drivers, fear, greed, tribalism, the thirst for power, they stay the same. History doesn't give us easy copy and paste solutions. In fact, its most valuable lessons are often negative. They teach us what not to do. What history really provides is context, nuance, and a detailed catalog of failures. It's a warning system. And by systematically ignoring it, we are choosing to fly blind into a storm that others have already faced and been destroyed by. Exploring these connections is the first step. If you think understanding where we've been is the only way to build a better future, then stick around. This is how we start breaking the cycle. By asking these questions together, we have a lot more to uncover. So here's the sobering reality we're left with. Humanity isn't doomed to repeat the past. It seems we're choosing to. We're held captive by the wiring of our own minds and the stories we tell ourselves. The lessons of history aren't locked away in some secret vault. They're right there in plain sight. They are in the stories of forgotten massacres, suppressed rebellions, and ignored pandemics. Winston Churchill famously said, "Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it." But maybe the truth is a little more complicated. It's not just about learning facts and dates. It's about having the wisdom to see the patterns, the courage to face the uncomfortable truths, and the humility to accept that we are not so different from those who came before us. The past isn't dead. It isn't even past. It's a persistent echo, a constant whisper, reminding us of who we've been and warning us about who we might become. The only question is, are we finally ready to listen? Thank you for watching. At Renaissance Spirit, we believe that history isn't just a story about what happened, it's a warning system. A vast and vital archive of human trial and error that we ignore at our own peril. As we explored today, the Battle of Blair Mountain, the Tulsa Race Massacre, the 1918 pandemic, these aren't just footnotes, they're flashpoints. And forgetting them isn't passive, it's dangerous. We don't just study the past here, we ask why we forget it and what that forgetting costs us. We confront the seductive myths and biases that keep us walking in circles, repeating the same mistakes with new names and shinier tech. But if we have the courage to see the patterns and the humility to accept that we're not immune to them, we can change the story. That's the heart of the Renaissance Spirit. Our channel is dedicated to the pursuit of a just, equitable, and humanitarian world, exploring history, politics, philosophy, the environment, culture, religion, and human psychology. From the streets of ancient Rome to the chaos of modern democracies, we trace the echoes of forgotten warnings and resurrect buried truths. To live the Renaissance Spirit is to refuse amnesia. It means holding a living dialogue between the past, the present, and the future, for the sake of our children, our planet, and our shared legacy. Will the generations after us remember us as sleepwalkers, or as the ones who finally listened? Please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with others who believe that knowledge, especially hard-won knowledge, is sacred. Take our quiz next to see if you embody the Renaissance Spirit. History hasn't died, only our understanding of it has. But here, we bring it back to life. Live the Renaissance Spirit.